You know that moment when something feels off? When your instincts scream that what's happening just isn't right? That's exactly what I felt the night two men in cheap uniforms showed up at my front yard, flashing plastic badges and calling themselves HOA officers. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank. But then things escalated fast, too fast. It all started when my teenage son Ryan was walking home from his part-time job. My wife Claire had gone to meet him halfway. That's when the so-called officers stopped them, claiming Ryan was in violation of community curfew rules. They said he had no right to be out past 9 and that Claire was enabling misconduct. Who even talks like that? Claire, being the strong-willed woman she is, laughed in their faces at first, but the men didn't find it funny. They threatened to fine us and even suggested Ryan could be detained for non-compliance. That's when my blood boiled. I stepped outside, asking them what authority they thought they had. Their response? They puffed out their chests, flashed those fake badges again, and said they had the full backing of the HOA board. Now, here's the thing. Our HOA is annoying, sure, but I knew for a fact they don't have their own officers, much less ones who can arrest anyone. The way these men squared up to my wife and son made it clear this wasn't about rules. This was intimidation. I looked closer at their uniforms. The patches were stitched unevenly. The logos didn't match, and their radios were clearly dollar store walkie-talkies. These guys weren't HOA, and they sure weren't cops. They were imposters, Claire whispered. But the real question was, why us? Don't escalate, Claire urged, but it was too late. They'd already overstepped. One of them grabbed Ryan's arm, trying to drag him toward their car parked at the curb. That's when my wife screamed, and I felt the rage I'd been holding back ignite. And here's the twist that would change everything. These guys had no clue that the one person you never want to cross in this neighborhood was already on her way, Claire's mother, Margaret, the district attorney. The night was far from over, and the game had just begun. The sound of screeching tires cut through the night as a black sedan pulled up right behind the imposter's car. For a split second, everyone froze. Then the driver's door swung open, and out stepped Claire's mother, Margaret. To the neighborhood, she was just a sharp-tongued older woman who never missed a council meeting. But to the city, she was the district attorney, and a fierce one at that. Margaret's heels clicked against the pavement as she marched toward us. Her voice carried the kind of authority that made even real officers straighten up. What exactly do you think you're doing with my grandson? The imposters stiffened. The taller one, still gripping Ryan's arm, immediately let go. He tried to plaster on a fake smile. Ma'am, just enforcing HOA regulations. The boy here broke curfew. Strict rules in this community. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Curfew? Under what statute? Show me the ordinance. Actually, show me your IDs, both of you. They hesitated, fumbling for words. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was underestimating her. Margaret had spent 3 decades dismantling lies in courtrooms. She could smell fraud a mile away. You've got 5 seconds before I call in real law enforcement, she said. And trust me, when they get here, they won't be as patient as I am. The shorter man tried to salvage their act, raising his toy walkie-talkie like it meant something. We don't have to answer to you. The HOA board authorized this. Margaret took one step closer, her presence towering over them despite her modest frame. Listen carefully. HOAs don't have police powers. You're impersonating officers. You laid hands on a minor, and you attempted unlawful detention. That's 3 felonies in under 10 minutes. Now get in your car and leave before I have you cuffed on my lawn. The taller one muttered, "This isn't over," but his bravado crumbled the moment Margaret pulled her phone from her blazer pocket and started dialing. Within seconds, they scrambled back into their beat-up sedan and peeled off into the night. Silence fell over the yard, broken only by Ryan's shaky breathing. Claire wrapped her arms around him, whispering, "It's okay. It's over." But Margaret shook her head. "No, it's not. Men like that don't pull stunts like this without backing. Someone put them up to it, and we're going to find out who." Her words sent a chill through me. She wasn't just talking like a protective grandmother. She was talking like a prosecutor about to open a case. And if she was right, this neighborhood war had only just started. The next morning, our front porch felt less like home and more like a crime scene. Claire brewed coffee, her hands trembling as she replayed the night over and over. Ryan sat at the table, unusually quiet, staring at his scraped wrist where the imposter had grabbed him. And Margaret? Well, she was already in work mode. She spread files across the table like we were in a courtroom. "I've seen these tactics before," she said, tapping her pen against a folder. "Impersonators are usually hired muscle. Someone in that HOA board wanted to intimidate you, and they went as far as hiring goons." I frowned. "But why us? We pay our dues. We keep our lawn tidy. We've never broken rules." Margaret gave me a look that made my stomach knot. Sometimes it's not about rules, it's about control. With that, she pulled out her laptop and started digging. She had contacts, judges, officers, even private investigators who owed her favors. Within an hour, she was cross-checking license plates, digging into property records, and tracing HOA meeting minutes. She worked like a surgeon, precise, cold, relentless. Meanwhile, I decided to do some snooping of my own. I walked around the neighborhood, pretending to take a morning jog. At the cul-de-sac, I spotted one of the imposters' cars parked near a house, shabby, dented, with that same crooked patch still dangling on the dash. And guess whose driveway it was parked in? The HOA president's. When I returned and told Margaret, her eyes lit up with a mixture of fury and satisfaction. Exactly what I thought. This wasn't random. They targeted you because you refused his proposal. Claire tilted her head. Proposal? Margaret nodded. The pool. Remember at last month's meeting, the president pushed a new community pool renovation fund. Half the neighbors opposed it. And you, she pointed at Claire, you spoke up the loudest. He lost face in front of the entire board. Now he wants payback. It clicked. This wasn't about curfews or rules. This was about silencing the one family who stood up to him. Margaret leaned back, a fire in her eyes. He thinks he can bully you into submission. He doesn't realize he picked the wrong family. Claire squeezed my hand, but I could feel the fear in her grip. What if he escalates? What if next time it's worse? Margaret smiled, not kindly, but with the sharp confidence of a woman who had brought down crime families. Then we'll be ready. Because the next time those imposters show up, they won't be leaving without real handcuffs. The battle lines were drawn, and Margaret had already planned her counterattack. 2 nights later, the imposters made their move again. Only this time, they weren't met by a frightened family. They were walking straight into a trap. Margaret had planned everything down to the minute. She contacted her friends at the police department, explained the impersonation charges, and arranged for plainclothes officers to stake out our street. The patrol car was hidden just a block away, engine cold, lights off, waiting for the signal. Claire and I pretended to go about our evening as usual. Porch light on, front door open, Ryan inside with his homework. The air was heavy, tense, like the calm before a storm. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. Then headlights crept up the street. Same dented sedan. Same 2 imposters in those ridiculous knockoff uniforms. They stepped out like they owned the place, one smirking, the other adjusting his fake badge. Well, the taller one said, spotting me. Thought you could ignore the HOA? Not tonight. I didn't answer. Margaret stepped forward instead, her voice like steel. Gentlemen, glad you came back. We've been expecting you. The shorter one sneered. "Lady, you've got no authority here." Margaret didn't flinch. She raised her phone and pressed a single button. Within seconds, red and blue lights flashed from the corner, and two unmarked cruisers boxed in their car. Real officers emerged, guns drawn, shouting commands. The imposters froze, panic draining the color from their faces. The taller one stammered, "Wait, we were just following orders." "Whose orders?" Margaret snapped. That's when the name spilled out, the HOA president. He had promised them cash for enforcing compliance against the families who opposed his pool project. And we were target number one. The officers cuffed them right there on the curb, reading charges of impersonating officers, attempted unlawful detention, and harassment. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, whispering, pointing, recording on their phones. By the time the police hauled the men away, half the block had gathered to watch. But Margaret wasn't finished. She marched straight to the HOA president's house with two officers at her side. The man answered the door in his robe, smug smile quickly fading as he realized the jig was up. Within minutes, he was served with a court summons for conspiracy and misuse of HOA funds. By dawn, the entire neighborhood knew the truth. The so-called enforcer of rules was nothing more than a bully with a checkbook. Ryan finally smiled again that morning, relief washing over his face. Claire hugged her mother, whispering, "We couldn't have done this without you." Margaret simply adjusted her blazer and said, "That's what family and justice are for." And with that, the fake officers learned the hard way, you never mess with a DA's family. If you enjoyed watching how we took down these fake HOA officers, hit that like button, comment below what you'd do in this situation, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping HOA stories.